अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Happy Holi!
Happy belated Holi.
No, well, while we are recording it, it's not Holi yet, but by the time you hear it, Holi would have happened. So, Happy Holi!
Happy Holi.
Happy Holi.
Colors.
So, before we go on to the headlines, we'd just like to tell you, since it's going to be Holi on Friday, we are recording this 2 days before we normally record Hafta. It's the 12th of March, Wednesday, 4:15 in the afternoon. So, there may have been certain things that occur after this, which is why we haven't discussed on Hafta, because they haven't happened yet.
We are not Antaryami.
Well,
Not Antaryami. Doordarshi.
We are also Doordarshi, and I'll prove to you once you give us the headlines, which Jayashree will do. We will be having Amit Varma on the podcast, the host of The Seen and Unseen, one of India's most popular podcasts. So we shall do the full introduction when he does join us in about 45 minutes' time. But before the headlines, I'd like to remind everybody we have a new project up, which is a Newslaundry News Minute, the Impunity of India's Police project. We will be traveling to at least 5 states, if not more. Basant Kumar, Prateek Goyal, Maria, Raju, Anisha Sheth, Janvi, Haritha Manav, Cora Abraham, and Nidarshana Raju and Jisha Surya, along with producers once Priyali and Parikshit tell us who.
And there will be more reporters
And-
eventually.
So it's going to be a big project. There's going to be a series of reports because the police is the most frequent engagement with the normal citizen. So we have to really look at this theme because the frequency with which police atrocities happen, in my view, and probably of the editors as well, it is not reported as often as it should be with the robustness and digging that is required. So this QR code is flashing in front of you somewhere to scan it and contribute to this project.
In fact, there's an incident in Alwar that has made quite a bit of news over the past few days where it's been alleged that an infant, very young
25-day-old baby.
baby
trampled
was during a raid and the child died.
And if that cop gets away with it, I mean, and in fact, these days on Insta, there's so many people who give you tips on what to do if a cop starts shoving you around. And all of them start off with, no matter what the provocation, don't hit back. Because the moment you do that, you're in the wrong. Then they say section 160, you do this.
If you're seeing this on Insta, I'm very curious about your algorithms. Because I don't see this on Insta. You're clearly looking for like what to do if police accosts me. And
He
influencers
hates
tell you.
police now.
But
maybe
it's quite-
so maybe my profile is that of a criminal. But in the studio, Anand, Vardhan, Manisha Pande.
Hello.
Joining us from Chennai is Jayashree Arunachalam,
Hello.
Raman Kirpal.
Hello.
And like I said, Amit Varma will be joining us shortly. The QR code will flash every now and then. Do scan it or click on the link below and contribute to this project. But let's get the headlines first.
Yes, so here are the headlines for the week. Days after Donald Trump announced India has agreed to cut their tariffs way down, the union government has said India has made no such commitments and has sought time until September to address the matter. Also, Trump's decision to impose sweeping tariffs on steel and aluminium imports officially took effect today. He also said reciprocal tariffs will be imposed on India, China, and other countries from April 2nd.
Although I think all tariff-related headlines we should change minute to minute because his
Yeah,
decision,
there's no certainty on.
he one day decides then say, okay, actually, fuck it, let's not do this.
No, and also you wonder how a country is expected to respond when this man is so chaotic. Like, you know that he's not following some sort of rational plot. So, a report by a Swiss air quality monitoring company called IQ Air has named Delhi as the most polluted capital city in the world in 2024. It also said 13 of the world's 20 most polluted cities in 2024 were in India. Topping the list, which might surprise people, is Birnihat town in Meghalaya.
Wow.
So I didn't know this, but did you know about this Ramdev versus Brian Johnson on Twitter?
Yeah.
I didn't follow
What
it.
is that?
Well, apparently it's the same video where he's running with the horse, right? And he said
Yeah.
that you live long or whatever. And Brian Johnson commented under it that the air quality in Haridwar is really bad, so you're not going to live long. So Ramdev blocked him.
So he's that
It's the best thing to do.
millionaire who wants to live forever.
Yeah, who also is a bit bizarre, but he's right about the air. It's terrible.
He's 30.
He's the one who walked out of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because
Although
So-
I must say he looks over 50, so it's not working.
He's not 30, dude. He's 50.
He's not
he
50.
is old.
He's old. He's old.
I'll just check,
Yeah.
but he's not 50, but he looks over 50. So I don't know.
No, I don't think he's in his 30s.
He is 47.
47.
Yeah.
He's basically
47.
50. So
Yeah, I'd say he definitely looks older than his age. So I don't know what his treatment is doing for him.
the inside of his body is
The
what's
inside
not
is that of an
aging.
18-year-old.
Outside, no one cares about. So
See.
anyway, India was crowned 2025 Champions Trophy winners on Sunday in Dubai.
Yay.
With a 4-wicket win over New Zealand. How exciting.
It was a
However, the
But
series
did you
was
watch
won by-
it? Did you watch
Sorry?
it? Did you watch it?
I watched bits. So I will confess that cricket is the only sport that I follow a bit only because of my father, who made me watch it during the 90s and all through the 2000s almost.
I watched it. It was fun.
So yes, but there were many controversies. One, that the championship was tilted in India's favor. One, they said all of India's matches were held in Dubai instead of the host country Pakistan. This is due to ongoing border tensions. Meanwhile, opposition players were flying back and forth, specifically to play against India and Dubai. Jay Shah, who is the head of the ICC, he presented the trophy to Team India, but no representative from the Pakistan Cricket Board, which is the host country, was present at the final award ceremony.
Yeah, this is.
And one controversy that you missed, which I will discuss when we discuss this whole cricket tournament, is that Shama Mohammed of
Yes.
the Congress party called Rohit Sharma fat. And it was the main debating point that night on every channel.
But then
and
once we won, and Rohit played very well.
I just want to say I'm Team
On the
Shama, and I'll tell you why.
Love it. Exciting. Now, clashes of exciting. Okay,
Can't
yes,
be
also
Team
connected to the
Shama.
Champions Trophy is a bunch of other
Please.
headlines. One, clashes erupted in Madhya Pradesh's Mao on Sunday. This is after India won. A group celebrating the win reportedly waved saffron flags and shouted religious slogans outside a masjid. 13 people have been arrested. And in Devas, videos emerged of the police publicly parading 9 men with their heads shaven. They allegedly created a ruckus during the cricket celebrations.
So this is how policing happens in our country, which is why journalism and reporting on this is important. Cops cannot do this. It is not legal. I want to know what punishment was given to those cops. I mean, if a bunch of people caught and shaved the heads of 5 cops and paraded them because they did something wrong, they'd probably be in bloody jail for years.
Yes.
Cops get away with fucking everything.
Yeah. In Maharashtra, Minister Nitesh Rane has announced an initiative to certify Jhatka meat shops that will be run exclusively by Hindus. He said this Malhar certification initiative will help Hindus identify mutton shops owned by Hindus. And they will sell, of course, unadulterated meat.
Of course.
What a progress we
This
made.
guy, no, Nitesh Rane, of course, he's covered himself in glory in the past also with the kind of things he's done.
What
and
I
said.
found really, disgusting about this whole thing was that, okay, you want to eat jhatka mutton, theek hai, you want certification for that, that's also fine. But when he's giving a bite on news channels, he's in the same breath says that this is for Hindus who want jhatka. The meat will be jhatka. It will not have spit in it. As if it's a pratha. That all Muslim shops with halal are just, it's a thing that they spit and give you food.
He's
And the
generalizing.
reporter is just nodding his head to this. It's become so common to just say something like this and just let it pass.
My
That's what-
grandmother on her WhatsApp group got this message about Hindu urban clap, where it's like urban clap. So they'll do like, there'll be a beautician and there's a tailor, they'll do home renovations, whatever, but they will certify that only Hindu people will come and they'll give you proof for it. And in the message for it, it says promise of no spitting, no jihad.
It's
So
crazy how this
it's
spitting
just-
thing has just spread as something very normal. You have BJP
Yeah.
spokesperson on television who one of them, Radhika, her name is, I'm forgetting her last name, but Kumbh was celebrated without any spitting in the food. I was like, as if everyone else is
right.
celebrating the
You
festivals.
should go and see the
spitting on people's
photographs of
food.
the Kumbh that they didn't show. There was bloody,
So filthy.
there was shit like as far as the eye could see along those banks. Anyway.
Meanwhile, didn't Modi also give Ganga Jal to in
my
Mauritius
old
where he
my
went?
old colleague Molchiri in Indian Express, she did a very good story on this. The amount of garbage
That is.
and sewage that they had left behind.
Right. So, in a bunch of headlines on Holi's communal colors, BJP MLA in Bihar, Haribhushan Thakur Bachol, has asked Muslims to stay indoors on Holi if they object to being smeared with colors. He also slammed the mayor of Darbhanga, her name is Anjum Ara, after she appealed to city residents to stop Holi from 12:30 to 2. As she said, Jummah time cannot be extended, so there should be a 2-hour break on Holi. And in Uttar Pradesh, a police official has said Muslims should stay indoors if they cannot accept holy colors, as the festival comes once a year, but Friday prayers comes 52 times a year.
This is the circle officer, Anuj Chaudhary.
Yes, and the Chief Minister Adityanath endorsed this amidst applause at the India Today conclave.
होली का दिन है, जुम्मा साल में 52 बार आता है, होली साल में एक बार आती है। तो मुस्लिम समुदाय के लोगों को यदि किसी को लगता है भाई आपको होली के रंग से आपका धर्म भ्रष्ट हो जाएगा या जो भी है, तो वो उस दिन ना निकले, घर से ना निकले, और यदि निकले तो उसका इतना बड़ा दिल होना चाहिए, वो दिल होना चाहिए कि भाई सब एक जैसे हैं, रंग तो रंग है।
लेकिन अगर कोई व्यक्ति पढ़ना ही चाहता है तो अपने घर में पढ़ सकता है, आवश्यक नहीं कि वह व्यक्ति मस्जिद में ही जाए। भाई या तो जाना है तो फिर रंग से परहेज न करें, अगर रंग से किसी को परहेज है तो अच्छा होगा। और पुलिस अधिकारी ने यही बात समझाई, और ठीक है, जो हमारा वो पुलिस अधिकारी है वह पहलवान रहा है, अर्जुन अवार्डी रहा है, ओलंपियन है, पूर्व ओलंपियन है, तो अब पहलवान की बात है तो पहलवानी की तरह बोलेगा तो थोड़ा कुछ लोगों को बुरा लगता है, लेकिन सच है, उस सच्चाई को स्वीकार करना चाहिए।
India Day Conclave has really fantastic and fine audience. They are always applauding at the right time with the usual suspects and they're grinning like jackasses as if, oh, what a wonderful thing has been said. No one has the guts to ask a counter question. It is you want to see what is a disgrace to journalism, just see the India Day Conclave.
Correct.
Meanwhile, in news on communal harmony, PM Modi gave a really beautiful speech at Jasne-Khusro, which is a Sufi festival.
Jashne-Khusro. It will restart after a long time. It used to be an annual event.
Yeah, I remember attending it very early on in Delhi. It's a very beautiful
It's
festival
really
also,
beautiful.
celebrating Sufi music. And
But
Modi apparently
after-
he was a chief
sorry.
guest.
He was a chief guest, but that no one showed.
It's a blow cold, blow hot approach of this government.
Right, so after Prime Minister Modi inaugurated Vantara, which is the animal rescue rehabilitation center in Gujarat run by the Ambanis, a wildlife protection forum in South Africa has urged India's Environment Ministry to investigate the export of several wild animals to the center.
Yeah.
And this report was carried in 2 papers and they pulled it down.
Oh, really?
Deccan Herald and Telegraph, no?
Yes.
Okay.
A 35-year-old journalist was shot dead in Uttar Pradesh's Sitapur district by unidentified assailants on Saturday. Raghavendra Bajpai was a local correspondent with Dainik Jagran.
And in fact, as we're recording this, there has been, she's been detained or arrested. The
Revati.
details are still to
In
emerge.
Telangana.
A journalist who is, and apparently a phone was taken. We're just getting details of that. You'll have a detailed report on that as well. In Telangana, right?
Yeah.
His family says that his last reports were on illegalities around paddy procurement. And some of the guys have been questioned in it also. The Lekpals who are in charge of basically looking at records.
Yes. So in Parliament, Tamil Nadu has gone to war with Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. He accused the state of doing a U-turn on its stance on the PM Shri scheme and the NEP. DMK MP Kanimuri then moved a privilege motion against Pradhan for misleading Parliament, also for referring to Tamilians as uncivilized, dishonest, and undemocratic. The speaker said he shouldn't have used those words.
Did he
later
actually
withdrew
say
those
that?
comments.
He said this in as many words? That they're
Stalin-
Said
uncivilized.
uncivilized,
No, I
dishonest.
think
He was referring to the government.
Government, yes,
Yeah.
not.
So
Not the
his
people
thing
of
is that
Tamil
he
Nadu.
says that Tamil Nadu had said last year that we are going to agree to the PM Shri scheme and to the NEP. So then Stalin tweeted out the documentation, which is in July last year. Tamil Nadu sent a thing saying we do not accept the terms of this, whatever. And then Pradhan's office sent its reply acknowledging it in August. So they're like, you are misleading Parliament because we did not mislead you. So
CBI, as a Congress chief, also said something.
Mallikarjun
yeah.
Kharge.
She
Some
then withdrew.
unparliamentary.
Yeah.
Anyway, Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended National Day Parade in Mauritius as the chief guest. He also received the nation's highest honor. It is the Grand Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean.
And just so you know, Manisha and I were watching television in the afternoon. All the English channels for sure, probably the Hindi ones also, were showing the Mauritius National Day live. Only because Modi ji is there. Nothing is happening in our country. Our 326 million hectares of India, nothing of consequence is happening. All the channels are only showing Modi taking salami of what I may uncharitably call a parade which NCC or a local school will do a better job.
No, parade was fine.
Dude,
No, yeah, no need
the
to
band was
shit on
marching.
Mauritius.
Like, how was the band marching? I didn't even know they were marching. I thought they were
Don't
just
say
walking.
things about our neighbors.
I'm
Friends.
just
See, but
saying.
it's not Mauritius's fault that
It's
media is covering
fine.
it so widely.
Dude,
I mean,
like live coverage of
Ah.
Mauritius National Day, like not just for 2 minutes, for fucking an hour, man.
Yeah, the coverage is a
It's a
bit
so-
problematic,
yeah.
but I think
Huh?
the march is okay.
Many people have linked his Mauritius visit to Bihar elections because
Because of the
Yeah.
Bihar
Spoken
election.
Bhojpuri there also.
no, Bhojpuri is the major language there,
Yeah.
but and all just like Trinidad, many migrants centuries ago shifted as migrant labor, and they are now powerful and control the government, and of a particular caste in Bihar, and it has also means
Which caste?
Bhumiyars. So other castes are also, but Bhumiyars are more powerful and are in government there for long. So it has also distorted the dowry market in Bihar. So many Mauritian influential and very rich families in Mauritius want to get their daughters married to someone in Bihar of that caste. So
Wow.
because they want their daughter to be married within the caste and in Bihar. So
And
they,
IAS, IPS.
IAS, IPS.
So
So it has put pressure on the same caste group in Bihar.
There was a time where a lot of newspapers would sustain a significant chunk of their revenue through matrimonials, which they still do. Now, if we can specialize in putting Mauritian, I withdraw all that I said about the marching band of Mauritius. It was too good. It would put the Chinese and the German marching band to shame. If we could open a page on Newslaundry specifically for Mauritian Bhumihars and set them up, and we can charge. I'm only seeing it from the point of view of how can we benefit from this.
I know
I think Anand's new show
I know
is sorted
someone.
now.
I know someone who 1956 they had this arrangement of the whole village going into air conditioned coach. In a village, villagers they had not seen even a long distance train. They were straight put into an air conditioned coach. Then they were taken to Mauritius to attend the wedding, and they were so it's an old tradition.
Okay, so we've been actually for the longest time trying to figure out a show for Anand, and various ideas have been thrown around here. In fact, we're still developing it. Anand, I have a wicked plan brewing in my head. We will discuss it later.
Congrats, Anand. Next headline is in Maharashtra. The Mahayuti Alliance, which had promised 2,100 rupees per month under a new scheme for women, has only transferred 1,500 for Feb and March. The government hasn't announced when the increased assistance will be implemented. And this is really shady, honestly.
Yeah, because apparently it will take the deficit up from 2,000 crore or some
Yes.
shit like, so it's becoming unwieldy. But yeah, promise to kar diya tha.
The reality has come.
In Manipur, days after about 1,000 weapons were surrendered, clashes erupted in Kangpokpi district. One person was killed, 15 were seriously injured. I think about 27 security personnel were also injured in the violence.
Yeah, there's that crazy video of somebody shot from inside the vehicle of the security forces where they're getting pelted with stones like left, right, and center.
On Tuesday, Airtel has announced an agreement with Elon Musk's SpaceX to bring Starlink's high-speed internet services to its customers in India. A day later, Airtel's rival Jio also announced a similar deal with SpaceX.
Sorry, Jayashree, I think you read that headline wrong. It says on Tuesday, Airtel announced an agreement with Elon Musk's SpaceX to bring Starlink's high-speed internet service to its customers in India. Shortly after that, Abhinandan Sekhri tweeted, Mukesh bhai kuch karo. Shortly after that, Airtel's rival Jio followed up with the same and announced a similar deal with SpaceX. I'm not saying that my tweet did it, but I'm just saying I did tweet that.
The chronology
No,
is clear.
how I see it, is SpaceX must have done with both, but Airtel was the first one to come out with the news.
In Pakistan, separatists hijacked the Jafar Express, a passenger train carrying around 500 people in Balochistan on Tuesday. 27 militants have been killed so far at the time of recording, and 155 passengers have been rescued. And
What
those
about
are the headlines.
their military? How many casualties there?
We don't know yet.
Yeah.
So let's first talk briefly about Holi, since it has Holi, many of our audience would have just celebrated. This entire narrative that, I think that was an unnecessary call by whichever bureaucrat said that for 2 hours stop celebrating Holi.
Bureaucrat नहीं है वो,
Mayor.
She's the mayor.
सर्कल ऑफिसर है,
No,
अनुज
no,
चौधरी.
he is talking about Darbhanga mayor.
Are you talking about the mayor?
So
I mean,
Anju Mada.
I mean, people have been playing Holi forever. No one has said stop Holi because namaz is happening. Stop namaz. The point is that why say this at all? Those who want to celebrate. Like for example, I take a walk with my white kurta pajama. There are these kids opposite house. They'll try to throw balloons at me. Now, theek hai yaar, as kids they try, they miss. Sometimes they get somewhere close. This is Holi. If I don't want to play, I'll hide. I won't go for a fucking walk. No one has to make an announcement. Don't go for walks if you're Muslim, if you're wearing white kurta pajama, if you're cold. I just think it's...
My issue with that is though, I mean, okay, yes, it is an unnecessary thing to say, I agree, but I feel like so many other people are saying wildly unnecessary things anyway, saying Muslims should hide indoors and all, but that has just become sort of, well, that is the nature of discourse. It is how it should be. So if one person says something that contradicts it, I don't see why it should become like, well, we should condemn that, but then we'll also talk about how the other people are saying terrible things.
But this is, I mean, your nuisance is about this time, right?
So
that's all
started
they've
off
discussed.
with this Chaudhary fellow who's a Pahalwan and now a circle officer. He gave this bite, and I think he's a bit of a media hungry guy, because he came and he said that, Holi comes once, Jummah namaz can happen so many times. So now they should respect and stay indoors and not come out. And we will see. We'll keep the Prashasan.
But who told him Muslims don't play Holi?
Usually, at least in Uttar Pradesh, whenever there's Holi and this is not the first time where Jummah has happened with Holi, there are clashes. There will be some communal tension around why did you come to the masjid, play, throw colours. In fact, the earliest recorded clash is from 1800s. I think the British Times say, where some procession will pass through a mosque, somebody will throw colour somewhere, some Maulvi will get upset and there's a clash. And earlier, I think they were more dominance exercises where two communities will try and exercise dominance over an area, that this is a Muslim area, so you can't play here, or this is a Hindu area, so we'll play here. But now it's come to a point where there's, like what happened with the cricket match after India won in Mau. There's a procession that goes to Mau in this area, which is majority Muslim. They go outside a mosque. The allegation is that they threw a firecracker inside. There are chants of Jayashree. So over the last 5 years, we've seen too much of this procession and in the name of festival, celebration, go and provoke. And I think the fear with this Holi coinciding with Ramzan and Jummah ka namaz, there is a fear that it will escalate into some sort of a tension. So I think he was talking in that sense. Reporters would have asked him, but police guy cannot say you stay at home. You say we will ensure that there's law and order. We make sure that, and usually what happens in areas, peace committees meet from Hindus and Muslims and they'll decide on their own that, okay, we will not do this or you will not do that. You don't play music here. We don't go there, do whatever. And that's it. And that's how you don't give an announcement and say that you stay at home if you don't like colours.
Yeah, I mean, because by that logic, the National Commission of Women should make an announcement. Women should just stay home in North India during Holi, because the amount of, groping and the most vile conduct I have seen in my life from a child in Dehradun has always been on Holi. So then maybe the National Commission of Women should also say women stay at home,
and I think people get it. Like, intention matters. If accidentally some color falls on someone who's not celebrating Holi, they're not going to lose it.
Deal with it.
But if you're going to go in someone's face and deliberately try and make them play Holi, then obviously they'll be a lot.
Last time wasn't there video that went viral, although to the credit of UP government, they took action against, there was this girl, Muslim girl on a bike, and these guys were forcibly throwing color and stuff on her. And of course that video went viral, and apparently that guy was finally arrested. It was in UP only.
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying.
The problem is with this guy, the circle officer, who shouldn't have just said that you stay at home, because then what does it mean? Like, why should someone stay home?
But also I feel like this provocation has become so normal that we have this sort of delulu idea of what we read in our textbooks, India, unity in diversity, Muslim friends and Hindu friends will hold hands and celebrate together. But that is not the country that you're living in now. And wasn't there that entire thing in that Haridwar University where they said they were having an iftar party and then they stormed the college and they said you have no right to form Islamic Jihad in Haridwar. And I mean, I'm saying it has become so normal and so everyday that who is surprised that this cop is saying this? And he's saying what most people probably think. So it's becomes sort of very hard to reconcile the
I
two.
think it will be worth watching, how Bollywood celebrates. I remember old days when Raj Kapoor is their studio, where all Muslims, whether Muslims
everyone.
and everybody
No,
used to come.
Muslims do celebrate Holi. Lots of them
Huh.
do, but lots of them don't also. But you don't have to go and make someone celebrate when they don't
Yeah,
want
of
to.
course. Of
So,
course. But Bollywood,
It's not just Muslims. Yeah, a lot of Hindus also don't want color on them, so they
Huh.
don't get out.
I also don't
I
get
don't
it.
know
3
what
o'clock.
happened.
I
I don't know what
don't
the scene in the South is now, but a really close friend of mine who's a very well-respected lawyer now, when he was, I think he was the second or third batch of the National Law School, Bangalore. He's from UP. During Holi, they had a little pond or something there. He was playing Holi like, so their friends, it's not like the others were not happy playing, but he plonked a girl into the pond. And his parents were called, that we don't play, what is this, rowdy, barbaric festivals, we don't do all. He was almost thrown out of college. And he was like, huh? She hasn't complained, no one has complained, but because it went around, he threw so, how dare they play Holi? If you want to play Holi, get out of college. This happened, and I'm talking about 1992, 93.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the Rajasthan Education Minister has sent a notice to the school, which is a convent, I think, where it's a simple notice went out
Yeah,
that don't
don't
bring
play
color, and
colour.
which is very normal because kids
Yeah.
tend to go
Yeah.
really crazy with colors. So just to maintain cleanliness and discipline, you say you celebrate outside. I in school remember it used to be always outside the school that you could throw color and do. Now there's
In
an inquiry
90s, no,
that they are.
in 90s, I had a South Indian neighbor, and they used to just lock their house. We used to lock their house from outside, so that nobody
one
comes
goes
to, because they
Yeah.
don't want to celebrate. So they've always asked us to just lock it and open it at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the evening.
So UP, there's this tradition of Bura Na Mano Holi hai, and Banaras apparently it had started the DM is called and the choicest of galis are given. Of course, on Holi, no one minds. That's it. But in also a lot of vulgar songs, which is
Expertise
the
of
whole,
Anand Vardhan.
the expertise. No, I remember that because he
Since
had.
yesterday we've been asking him,
He had-
can you write on this vulgar
Yeah,
song?
no, because I think on Hafta we discussed once. He explained the socio-political, context behind a lot of these Bhoji songs, and Bihar being unnecessarily earning notoriety on account of that kind of music. But on what is Holi there like, and what is the double meaning? Now even there's a guy who runs a really interesting comedy channel where his avatar is that of a Bhojpuri star. And everywhere he brings in Bhoji. He's like science fiction बनाएंगे, हाँ मून पे जाएंगे वहाँ भौजी
He
आएगी
is from TVF.
और फिर हाँ TVF और फिर हम what do they call the belly button?
He
in
was
this thing?
also in
What do they call belly button?
Dhori.
हाँ और फिर भौजी का फिर चांद पर जाके ढोरी चाटेंगे. ये है science fiction.
What?
That's it. He said because Biharis will bring bhoji and dhori into everything. That's the
No,
concept
that is
of
an exaggeration. But anyway, so
really, that's what you observed on Hafta all these years, Anand. But what is it about? What's
no.
Holi
So
like?
you didn't call me to comment on the earlier discussion. So
But
first
you can.
yes.
You can tell.
So I first listened to Mr. Anuj Chaudhary long back when Sushil Kumar won a Olympic medal, and he was called to a TV studio because apparently he was his training mate in one of the akharas. Anuj Chaudhary, the police officer. So he gave a very detailed interview about Sushil, how he used to train. So that was my first encounter with this police
He's
officer.
pretty young then, huh?
Yeah. And then I'm talking of Tokyo Olympics. Long
Must
back.
have been in his 20s or something back then.
So he had got into the police through a sports quota then. So that was my first encounter. You can see those were technical explanations of wrestling. What is Sushil's strength and this. So that one thing is that what he said, and he tried to somehow salvage it towards the end of the bite. That we also ask people not to throw colors unnecessarily on people, and this. He tried to salvage it, but the first 2-3 sentences were disastrous. So
That carried.
That carried, and the longer version is a bit face-saving one. So what should be disturbing is not the newsy day. where the classes actually can happen, but for police officers and bureaucracy, the greater challenge is both news and non-news day, the mundane and the extraordinary. So on what he does on mundane days, what is the conduct, and that is what bureaucracy is about. Policing is about what you do on mundane days, so non-news days. So we may say keep our eyes off on mundane days, but he is involved in everything. So he would be also attending to say very say petty crime of theft also. So what he does then? So that is the larger messaging I get from it, that and that is what bureaucracy is all about, doing boring things very
And media makes the most of what they can because they sell.
so bureaucracy is doing the boring things, not the newsy things extraordinarily, not the newsy things extraordinarily. So that is one thing. But say some police forces have this task force where they hire criminals from a rival gang to finish off the other gang. So senior police officers have written about it. That's not a very rule book trick, but they do it, and governments know it. So the suggestion he was giving was illegal and out of box, but my point is that whether it was a tension diffusing measure or not. Like this, we were talking about district council meetings, and this Muslim lady who suggested that there should be 2 hour slot when Holi should not be played. So she actually walked out from the district magistrate was holding a meeting in Darbhanga where he was saying that, and Darbhanga city far populous than the city we are talking about, Sambhal, it has a very sizable presence of Muslims. So he was saying sensible things that no one should be forced to play on these things and this. So I think
this was her out of box contribution.
Because she also wants to pander to a constituency. So that is thing. Third thing, which is the boarding thing, theoretically I think we are in a phase which to put it more academically, Arthur Schopenhauer said that hedgehog dilemma. Hedgehog who want to live at a moderate distance because their spines are prickly. So if you come too close to us, we will prickle you because some people are very prickly. And but we have to coexist. Suppose in winter we want warmth, so we have to coexist. But in order to coexist, we have to take into account the mutual harm that we can do each other. So the theory of moderate distance that Sigmund Freud has also used in explaining individuals in communities. So I think the current situation is somehow developing in that direction.
Okay. So no comment
But
on
this
the
out of the box thing, this is even when the UP administration decided that during the Kavad Yatra, we will label all shops with the name, whether it's a Muslim. That was also supposedly their out of the box solution to Kavards come, they'll order food, then they'll start making a ruckus that Muslim gave me a food, mera dharam bhrasht ho gaya hoga, tod phod karenge. So in their head, they thought that to avoid anyone complaining that a Muslim gave me food or a Muslim did something to me, we'll just clearly write. And so now it's up to the Kavards that whether you want to eat from a Hindu. So,
or if you want to break that shop.
but then it never ends. No, the point is that you can never satisfy someone by
now
bending
coming
to these.
Okay, now to complete your point, yes.
No, I was just saying that it never ends.
Because I am coming to my specialization, vulgarity.
Vulgarity.
Yes. Your specialization.
So you missed one thing. The Braj Holi can also get vulgar.
Yeah, with the lut.
Yes.
But not just vulgar, violent also.
Yeah. How violent is?
But there it's violent with design, na? With lathis.
That is
In
ritual.
Uttarakhand, there's one place where they stone.
So vulgar, but I think there is a different. See, Holi in Bihar and Eastern UP, I am not talking about all UP, because only till say Gazipur and to an extent Banaras, not all Banaras, and Azamgarh, these have some elements which they can share with a particular part of Bihar. Otherwise, UP is a different ball game altogether. Bihar is different. So we have extended Holi, so we it doesn't end at 3 p.m. and in Delhi you have shops open at 6 p.m. No, so in that in daytime it's the dirty Holi with all these colors and this all that, and even paint and that, and all throwing in say nalas and all that. And in evening they will bath, and they will have new clothes and have abir, and abir is played throughout the evening and night.
Abir.
Okay, the gulal, what you know,
Okay.
the
So that's
Bollywood-
clean Holi.
that's
Not
clean Holi, but it's also where you eat and go to each other's home or do Holi Milan and all kind of things. And those who are weird in their head, they consume bhang and something like
Those
that.
who are weird in the head.
So,
I see.
but so this is one thing. But on two particular sexualized relationships that are targeted during Holi, one is of course the Bhauji Bhavi one, and one is Sali. So these two are, but it is not that all Holi songs are vulgar. So in fact they are trained singers in villages who are called to sing Jogira.
Sararara.
Jogira, and they are clean songs, and there is a tradition of also singing Holi. It's the whole genre is called Holi, so
Yeah.
they are clean songs. Now what has happened at the sexualized space has been taken into account by the pop industry for its titillation value, and titillation value in ways like, now see, the Bhavi, they were banter songs over centuries. They grew because Devar was the only relationship in that newlywed women found in her household who was subservient to her. So she was very comfortable with her. Also, some forms of female desire. It's not only the male side, of course, the all groping and all licentious and lecherous stuff is there, but also there are songs which express female desire also. So a day off for, say, some promiscuous fantasies. So those were always not vulgarly worded, but now they are very, very, say, worded in a way which leaves nothing to imagination. So this has all been the say handiwork of a pop industry, which is pandering to the baser instincts of the youth. Also, what has happened is that the decline of you see it's not only in Haryanvi songs you see.
Yeah, even
or
Punjabi song
The
also.
Surinder Kaur's today, Yo-Yo Honey Singh is the household name. Surinder Kaur is
and
not.
Honey Singh, the first time he went for two lines of Bhojpuri lyric, he took out the most say raunchy.
Acha, he's used
His
that.
latest hit, his comeback hit is has 2 lines of Bhojpuri.
Which are those?
I will not say. So
So recently this
so
Gopal.
his recent.
Anand, the breadth, width, and depth of your knowledge disturbs me sometimes.
So his song is his latest. His is Maniac. So
I see.
in Maniac, what he and the model he has used is Isha Gupta, the Bollywood actress. So she is lip syncing to a song which was sung by someone who Hanisi claims that he spotted on Instagram. So there is this girl Ragini Vishkarma who was singing on harmonium. So and she sings randomly, so Honey Singh's version is that I didn't want to get her to get conscious. So what I did, I sent my engineer to her place, and I was instructing him on phone, and he recorded her voice to these third-rate lyrics. So means it's a very raunchy lyric. He just extracted the commercially viable thing from Bhojpuri. The sexualization of the regional pop is not that it has come out of say nothing, but because there was a kind of say a subaltern way of rejoicing a day in sensuous ways. But these say marketing agents of the pop industry, they have now turned it into a very say you can prunient instincts of youth. So they have tapped into that. So
Right. So, but just, I'll move on to the next subject. Briefly, I want to talk about cricket and move on to tariffs. But just saying that this whole accusation that this is vulgar is not just on Bhojpuri music. It's true for Punjabi music only, but Jat don't care. As the song goes. Punjabis don't give a fuck.
Some of the wedding songs are very raunchy, the Punjabi. I was very shocked.
But
When I
also
first heard
the
it.
one
Plays.
thing is that the regional pop is on high. Bollywood music has disappeared.
exactly.
It's
In
all
fact,
all means people.
Bollywood uses Punjabi songs to get traction.
That's what Bollywood is recycling. 10 years ago, some song came,
And
which
they
was
remix
which
it.
was a third-rate song even for its own time, but they are recycling it because they are Bollywood music has declined, and obviously there was, without internet there was a space for the regional music, but with internet and with social media, it has now completely overshadowed Bollywood music.
Right. So, Jayashree, you don't play Holi in Tamil Nadu in Chennai, right? So,
And you
I
have
mean, I have during college. So it was
Oh.
great. I mean, I have nothing to contribute to the greater conversation, but the best Holi party I've ever done was on a beach. Because then
nice.
you get really like colored and whatever, and then you run into the sea. So it was good.
Oh, nice. Well,
What about
Holi.
I have
Raunchy.
nothing else to add.
What
Yeah.
about vulgar Tamil songs?
I mean, Tamil songs are wildly vulgar, but they'll write it in very poetic sort of ways. Like, oh, the leaf is trembling, but the leaf is actually referring to, a woman's body parts and all. So it's, but like as a child, you're singing it like with great gusto, and then you get a little older and you're like, oh shit, what was my mother thinking? So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And Amit, what about you? Happy Holi to you as well.
It is today Holi. I didn't realize.
No, it is
But
day after tomorrow. But
day after tomorrow. Happy Holi to all of you. And I was in the mind frame ki yaar, we're going to come and do serious talk about tariffs, and I am so happy to land up in the middle of a discussion on raunchy songs and female desire and subaltern ways of rejoicing a day. So yeah.
Anand is our gem. But
Anand, thank you for that. Taking one for the team, as it were.
but Amit Varma has joined us. I'm sure all our audience already knows who Amit is, but since we have a tradition of always introducing our guest, he started his career in advertising. He's a podcaster now based in Mumbai and a writer as well. He also holds workshops on writing, and I'll let him tell you about that on his own. He's been a journalist since 2001. He's written for the Wall Street Journal, Guardian, Observer, and most, if not every, Indian publication. He has won the prestigious Bastiat Prize, I guess I've pronounced that wrong, for journalism in 2007 and 2015. And the first person to win it twice. And the Seen and Unseen is his podcast, which gets 225,000 downloads a month. Wow, that's amazing. So welcome, Amit. And
Thank you.
You have
Happy
that
to be
course
here.
still happening? Can we put a link in the show notes?
Yeah, I do a couple of courses. One is the Art of Clear Writing, which is a writing course, and I've just started another course with my friend Ajay Shah, which is called Life Lessons. So yeah, I mean, I'll give you the links. You can put it in the show notes.
Fantastic. Now, we will talk about tariffs, and right now, as we're recording this, the White House press conference has been put out on social media, where his press secretary,
Oh, that Caroline.
she's holding up this placard saying these are all the countries that have unreasonable tariffs on US alcohol. and India's there as well, 250%, 150%. So we'll talk about the reverse tariffs and this. You know what they're doing in Canada, right? They are basically not buying any American products.
And some
And
250% on dairy products they've announced.
No, what they've done is like if Americans have boycotted on their own, in the sense that if I go and there's an American, I see it's made in America, I'll put that upside down and also suppose there's a shelf of, XYZ sauce. I'll put those upside down. So the next person who comes knows it's American. So on shelves all over Canadian stores, Canadians are just putting stuff that's made in America upside down. So the next person doesn't even look at that shelf. And of course, Trump went on and said in a press conference that people are illegally boycotting stuff, including Tesla cars. So, of course, question is, what is a legal boycott as opposed to illegal boycott?
I think every week your Trump accent is getting a little worse.
Worse, yeah. But before we get into tariffs, I want to quickly go around. Shama Mohammed said two things. One is, I think it's perfectly justifiable for Indian team not to want to visit Pakistan. I don't see it as a sign of BCCI bullying. Maybe if India was a weaker force in cricket, but since we fucking own cricket, I mean, look at what's happened with that train hijack today. I would not feel safe if I was a cricketer. Thank God I'm not. I'd rather be a golfer than cricketer. But to go to Pakistan to play, so I don't see why that is a criticism. I mean,
I think you have to have a certain rule across all sport, no? Because we did play the Davis Cup last year in Jan. The Indian tennis players went there. They said we were really treated well. So it can't be like, oh, let the tennis guys go and play and let them be unsafe,
but
and
again,
let
it's
the
not
cricket
so high
guys.
profile, no?
But it
Because
is-
you are using it politically. You're using cricket
And
politically.
You don't think there's a risk?
There may be, but then uniform it.
No, but it is.
And tell us what the risk is exactly. What do you like? Make it known to us. It can't be just on a whim that these people can go, but these can't go.
Okay.
Don't have like separate rules for different sports.
And I think it is bullying.
And if there's
Because-
credible security threat, then put it on the table, and
Because
everyone
India,
will comply.
India playing cricket means money. Okay,
Hmm.
if India doesn't play cricket,
Yeah,
there's
no
no
one's
money
gonna-
in cricket.
Like, who's going to watch such
Ah,
a shit sport
that is
anyway,
why.
man?
So in a way, it is bullying. Na? If you say that India will play, but it will
Play in
on,
Dubai.
on,
On our
on
terms.
its own term.
No, but I mean, I just read out
Plus,
that
the country has to have, I think, uniform norms around whether you can't have one section of people go, the other section not go.
Anand, you have view on this?
Figure out what your stance is.
No, I means I don't know what is the team's perspective on it. Hardik Pandya was asked this post the match, and he said, "This is a question above my pay grade." So means this is not for me to decide.
Sure.
Risk assessment, of course, Davis Cup tennis team cannot be compared with a cricket team because of the number of players that would be and the crowd that they will attract, because in Pakistan also cricket is number one sport. So also there have been real incidents in Pakistan where a Sri Lankan team
Yeah,
was
2009
attacked.
attack.
And a lot of other countries who now visited Pakistan also had reservations for long time. It is only till say last 3-4 years that they have started visiting. So and India's insecurities are not comparable to those, because India can be
It's unique, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
there's a unique.
So the unfair advantage that India had, I think it started with English captain, former English captain Michael Atherton's perhaps it was a podcast only on Sky Sports in UK, where he said that India had an advantage because it could because cricket is a sport which depends on surface also. So Indian media was asking why they are not taking an extra fast bowler and seamer, but India had its calculations. They took more spinners with them because of the slow track. They will be playing on the same surface, and it somehow got into that realm where it was advantageous for India. So that is a fair point. That of course, and India, if other teams had to play in Pakistan, in Rawalpindi, Lahore, and Karachi on different surfaces, so they had their team combination different kind
Right.
of.
We didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Also, India could have also struggled with quality spin, because we have, in the longer format of the game recently, in 2024 we lost 3-0 to New Zealand.
Wow.
All said and done, so the unfair advantage was, I think, an unintended consequence, not by design.
But it was an advantage. So the criticism
So-
that it's no advantage is also a bit too defensive. Amit, you have a view on this?
I have mixed
You're a
feelings
cricket
about
fan,
this.
right?
Yeah, I was a professional cricket journalist for many years.
Oh, dear.
I have mixed feelings on this. On the one hand, I agree with you, Abhinandan, that I think the security fears are justified, though I agree that they need to be spelled out, but they are certainly justified. But on the other hand, I don't think that's a core reason for India not visiting Pakistan here to play cricket. I think the core reason is that sport is being used as a tool of geopolitical posturing. And I think that that is actually a misplaced tactic in this particular case. Like, in a sense, it's similar to what the US is trying to do with tariffs. That you're trying to play a geopolitical game with a tool that will actually not achieve all of that much, if anything, will make things worse, and you're harming your own people. So, in that sense, they're kind of similar. But at the same time, I don't downplay the security worries. But I'm just saying that in terms of how you are thinking about it, the whole political angle of it to me is rubbish.
I see.
Can
Raman sir?
I have three
Yes.
hot takes.
Please.
So, I mean, I agree with Raman sir, I agree with Manisha that there cannot be a sort of consistent thing, because cricket is where they have all the money. So, no other country is going to be like, yes, well, we have a problem with India doing this because India brings in the money. But I think, one, India is a very unsporting country. I think it has very little to do with success and failure. And I think that's how it also played out with that Pakistan official not being on stage, with all these team players going and hugging Jayashree after they won. I think like that entire standing ovation of Chennai crowd or whatever is an aberration. But we are unsporting when we win. We are unsporting when we lose. Number two is, I think, cricket is very massive and lucrative and whatever. But it's also, I feel like it's a niche sport, that has acquired a lot of massive size because we have a huge population, but it's not really a globally consequential sport like football. And my third hot take is that I think the Champions Trophy is a dead tournament. I think it was brought in so that India would have one more shot to win because they lost the ICC World Cup. And that's the only reason it was played.
When was it started? I don't know about this.
No, I think they did now because they lost the last ICC thing. So it's a bad precedent.
I see. So,
No,
Raman
I
sir,
think it's a bit of political statement also, because Pakistan players are still not allowed to play IPL. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they are just taking it further. And as I said, it's a money game, and if India is not in this,
then there's no money.
India is not playing, then there's no money. And also, I mean, since Pakistan was the host country, so I just fail to understand why Pakistan wasn't present on the final day.
Yeah.
And there were lots of little
should
things.
have-
No, they said that the official was there, but he wasn't called. Then there was the thing where they didn't use the Pakistan logo on the branding. Then there was the thing where they played the Australian anthem. Like, it just feels, I don't know. Like,
And then ICC's official explanation is that PCB chairman was supposed to attend the post-match ceremony, but he was unwell, so he didn't come. So in his place, the tournament director, who is a different person, who was present in Dubai, he could have
Been called.
he could have taken his place, but he didn't communicate. So they put it down to some communication gap. So
मतलब ये किसी हाई स्कूल का फाउंडर्स डे है.
so
such a huge
वो
tournament.
क्या वो आना वो ठीक
Such
करते
a
हैं.
huge tournament.
also the advantage thing, apart from finance, now some of the more say India centered commentary see it as a sign of decolonization, because MCC, from which ICC grew, so it was UK controlled. So now the financial power center has shifted here. Now we are bringing you all the money. So all sort of commentary from Australian newspapers or in English newspapers in Britain, of course English in Australia also, but so they are taken with a pinch of salt that they are now upset.
Also that whole thing that when the India played the World Cup against West Indies, we were only given 2 passes for the Lords, whereas anyone who was a member of that cricket club could come, whereas Indian. So, and of
So
course now it's
MCC is a very closed and very British values thing.
it's a
Means the
payback time.
BBC put out a survey few years ago that what you count among the signs of Britishness. So cricket was among them, and also the MCC kind of cricket. So
I just had a glimpse on the TV when it was shown live. Anyway, I just went for a movie because cinema tickets were very cheap on that day.
Okay.
So, 43 crore people watching the match.
Wow.
43,
But sir,
44.
yeah, but the World Cup final is watched by over 2 billion. Yeah, I mean, it's not even it's not even close. But just one last hot take, because before we move on to tariffs, Shama Mohammed said that, I don't know, she tweeted something about Rohit Sharma's weight. And then, of course, it became primetime news. Of being a politician, of course, things. But just saying, I've said this a few times on Hafta, for which we got a lot of hate mail, that I don't think what she said was wrong.
Oh God.
It's just, no, you tell me, does Rohit Sharma look like an athlete? You tell me any quote unquote sport in the world where the best, whoever's considered the best at
He
that.
played really well, by the way.
No, I'm sure he
the
did.
match.
I mean, some of the snooker players, they play really well. They're 180 pounds. They're not sportsmen. They're really good at a
But
game.
he's not that.
Darts. No, I'm
But
not
he
saying,
is, but he's able to play at his weight. No, is
No,
that not the
absolutely. I'm not saying he
consideration?
should
And there's
not.
technique.
I'm just saying that as an observation, it is not wrong. And the thing is, here's the thing. This Inzamam ul Haq was called Alu, Alu, Alu. Whenever he entered a stadium and Indians were there. Dilip Mendis, you remember his body? Rana Tunga, you remember his body?
Sri Lankan.
I mean, the guy, I mean, what I'm saying is that it just proves my point that it is a game which does not require the level of athleticism that, strictly speaking, a sport does.
No,
Which is
I
fine.
think, no,
We should
no.
let the
No,
former
but I
cricket
think,
journalist
but also
take
I
this.
think
Yeah.
the issue that we should be pushing back on is like, why is she just randomly saying he's fat? Like,
Yeah.
where is this opinion coming
because
from? What
he's a
science is it based on?
sportsman.
It's nothing.
People,
So
they said that about Gaza all the time, commentators, because in his
What?
the latter part of his career, Paul Gascoigne, the football star, he had put on weight, and commentators used to say Gaza needs to lose weight. They said about Wayne Rooney. Because he's a
Yeah.
bloody sportsman. You got to look like a sportsman. As a politician, it was a dumb thing to do. But it's not an inaccurate or an incorrect observation. That's all I'm saying. Let the
no, I don't.
Let the former cricket
journalist say.
take this.
Or do you want to sit this one out, Amit?
No. What I would just say is that the two cases are slightly different. Like number one, as you correctly pointed out, you don't need to have a super fit body to play cricket. Like India is not a sporting nation. The reason we do so well in cricket is that fundamentally it's a game of skill. Batting especially, you don't have to be at peak athletic fitness. And all of the people you fat shamed, Rana Tunga, Mendes, Inzamam, they are all some of the greats of the
Great.
game, right?
Yeah, they're the
And
best.
that's not the case in football. So
Yeah.
what happened in Gaza and Rooney's case is Gaza and Rooney kind of fell off a cliff in terms of form. They were playing well below their best, and it is at that point that their weight was, used as a supplementary insult. That hey, you can't play, you fat ass, right? In this case, I don't think that's the case. In this case, I don't think Rohit has fallen off a cliff or anything like that. So the only criteria should really be,
Doesn't
how well
impact your
he's
game.
playing on the field, which doesn't depend on his weight really. But having said that, somebody wants to comment on his weight, that's their prerogative. So that's fine. But it is not relevant to the sport. It's not an intelligent comment. It's just
It's
it's there.
very
and that's
Yeah.
it.
It's a dumb.
Okay.
No, and I think it is very much dependent on what role you have in cricket. So a batsman can be a bit less fit, but if he's fitter, it will only benefit him. A fitter Rohit Sharma will be better performing still as a batsman because he is primarily gifted with a good hand-eye coordination and a sense of timing. Gets into position to balls easily. In batting, reading line and length, hand-eye coordination, getting into position, these are very valuable traits that he has. But if he was fitter, he could have played longer innings, more patient innings, and like a fast bowler, all of the players you named who were not that fit, none of them were as a fast
Yeah,
bowler.
exactly.
So was a fast bowler. But if you have to play long innings, more patient, this and the cricket and the fitness standards have in cricket have gone up. Now you have yo-yo test to clear to get into.
Yeah, but that is true on everything.
So have gone up. Also, what he was doing and was such a easy skill set, and he is getting 100 crores for that, then I would be doing the easy thing. So of course it's a high skill set that he is, and in the next Olympics you have cricket as a sport in the Olympics. So so it's a sport game. This
Yeah, I think
this
sports is
this
also about skill. It's not just athleticism.
this decision of different kinds of athleticism. If you want to put up a very stupendous fielding performance, you have to be as fit as a footballer. So
No,
yes,
but, I mean,
yes, because
not even close. But
no,
anyway, I mean,
no, if you like when Phillips,
you may need the agility, but you don't need the fitness of footballer. For a footballer, you have to run 12 kilometers in 90 minutes, sprint, stop, walk, jog,
But
sprint,
also-
stop, walk. I can guarantee you, not even 20% of Indian cricketers will survive half
It's
a
n-
semi-professional football game. So it's on the same. And secondly, I think this thing that it's easy to do, that is not even the question. You think darts is easy? You think scoring a perfect score of darts is easy? It is impossibly difficult. Have you seen the guys who win dart tournaments in bars? But now let's get to the entire debate about tariffs, which changes hour to hour. But before I do that, here's the QR code again. We would like you to contribute to this project. This is the impunity of India's police. We will have at least a dozen reporters and producers traveling to at least 5 states to bring you the series. Pay to keep news free because we do not either depend on sarkari ads or ads हम कर दिखाते हैं. Quite a cool ad, by the way, Adani. Have you seen it? हम कर दिखाते हैं हम or some shit like that.
I saw it.
So, but no, none
On
of those
the
ads you'll
quotes.
see on Newslaundry. Here's the QR code. The link is in the show notes below. Contribute, keep us going. So, set the context for us, Amit, and tell me what you think will happen to India. President Trump very casually said, we've told India also we'll be imposing tariffs, etc., etc. Then the poor MEA had to say, no such thing has been communicated. No tariffs have been imposed yet or agreed upon. Then today, the press secretary at White House said these people are imposing, we will impose tariffs. Canada, he said we will impose 50%. Then he said, no, we will not. Canada said, doesn't matter whether he says yes or no, we are not removing ours. Tariff was necessarily lead to a disaster because that seems to be the general consensus of economists. However, I will take that as with a pinch of salt because 20 years ago, the general consensus of economists was that globalization is a net win for everybody, and it emerged it was not. And there were political consequences in different countries in different ways and for different reasons. But this one logic, which I see a lot of commentators saying, which I think is true but conveniently, limited in its interpretation, that tariffs are not paid for by the other country like Trump says. Your own consumers will pay for tariffs. But I think the whole point is that if that product is more expensive, the demand for that will go down. So locally made produce or products will get more sales. I think that is the point, not who pays for it, right? Which is kind of shifting goalposts. So now you give us what you make of this.
Yeah, so let me break down my sort of giving context into 3 broad areas. Area number 1 is that I just find that of all the things that Trump is doing, tariffs is the one that is truly bizarre because for everything else, whether it is the isolationism or the small government or whatever, you can be for it, you can be against it, but there are reasonable arguments on both sides. There simply aren't reasonable arguments on both sides of tariffs. Tariffs are a disaster, period, and this has been the economic consensus for 200 years. There are 2 broad arguments that Trump makes in favor of tariffs. The first one is that is a whole mercantilist one, that the state will raise money in this way, so we'll have to charge less taxes. This was an argument that was in vogue in the 17th and 18th centuries, and it kind of went out of vogue because it was clearly nonsense. But I'll break them down and tell you why they are nonsense. The second argument is the one that was first stated by Alexander Hamilton, And then in the early part of the 19th century, it was popular, which is the argument that you are making, that our local industries will benefit if we can protect them. Because the term Hamilton used was infant industries. So there are infant industries, we want them to grow. Same argument that Nehru used with import substitution, or Modi does now with Make in India.
Right.
So that is the argument there. And every economist since, from Adam Smith to Ricardo to Karl Marx to Keynes to Hayek to Friedman to Krugman, whether they are left, whether they are right, agrees that they simply don't work, the thinking has gone wrong. And even the world kind of shifted stance on this. Like the US was big on tariffs till the middle of the 20th century. Then in 1930, when the Great Depression hit, they came out with something called the smooth Holi tariffs. And the rest of the world responded to these high tariffs with reciprocal tariffs. The Great Depression got much worse. It had a terrible impact on the global economy. And by the end of World War II, the US pretty much realized, and the Western world realized, that hey, tariffs are a disaster. So whereas tariffs on industries stood at about 40 to 45% at the end of World War II, by the end of the century, they had reached closer to 5%. They were really low. I'll come back to India's history later. Now, if I may, let me give a quick 101 on why tariffs are such a disaster. And for that, I'll invoke a thought experiment. Let us say that there is a product, a widget, which a local manufacturer can make for 110 rupees, but a Chinese guy can sell me for 100 rupees. So the local manufacturers will now come together, they'll form a trade association, they'll go to the minister, they'll say, ki tariff lagao, local industry hurt ho raha hai, we have to encourage our industry. And then the government puts a tariff of 20 rupees on the Chinese thing, so that is now 120. And therefore the local guy at 110 gets all the business and does well. Right? So your immediate seen effect is that local industry is doing well. But the unseen effect is that the consumer who would have paid 100 rupees for something is actually paying 110 rupees. So every consumer is paying 10 rupees extra, which would otherwise have stayed with him or gone back into the economy, generated jobs, generated industry, etc., etc. But instead of that, it's gone to that one interest group. I like to say that all interventions in free markets are a redistribution of wealth from the poor to the rich. Right, from the poor to the rich. And the first example I always use is tariffs, because what happened is you took 10 rupees from a whole bunch of poor consumers and you passed it on to one rich interest group that is out there. So this is the first of two really bad impacts. The first of two really bad impacts is that you've hurt your own consumer. It effectively becomes a tax on the poor, and it goes to help the interest group, which may be an Adani Ambani, which could be a trade association or whatever. And it doesn't make sense. Everybody's worse off. The second impact is actually on the local guys. You're hurting the local guys also, and you're hurting them in two ways. One way is that when you have tariffs on goods from abroad, you also have tariffs on their inputs. And therefore, their prices go up even further. Instead of 110, it might cost 115 because some of his inputs have tariffs on them and he has to pay for them. But the second deeper way is that how do companies become world class? We want our companies to be world class, right? That happens with competition. The more people you're competing with, the more you have to lift your game. So if you're actually competing with all the players around the world, from Scandinavia, from US, from China, you have to adopt best practices, you have to look for efficiencies, you have to significantly up your game, right? And this helps in exports also, because then you go out in the world market and you're competing. But all of this knowledge, all of this upgrading doesn't happen in a protected market where the incentives are different and you don't have to compete in this manner. So local companies in the long run also hurt out. So it's just a huge negative sum game. And as far as countries enriching themselves is concerned, the thing is, we don't function in a vacuum. What you are doing is, number one, your consumer is paying the extra cost, it's not the foreigner. And secondly, your consumer would have done something with the money. It would have gone out into the economy. It would have gone out, it would have created jobs. It would have done all of that. That hasn't happened. And that is something that is not seen. And secondly, the mistake a lot of these people make, the mistake that people made in the 17th and 18th centuries, a mercantilist way of thinking, the mistake that Trump is making, is he's thinking of trade as being something that happens between countries and is zero sum, right? And none of those two conditions hold true. Trade does not happen between countries. Trade happens between individuals. Individuals from India will trade with, should trade with individuals from Pakistan, individuals with China, and all trades happen to mutual benefit. It's a positive sum game. One of the most absurd terms that has become politicized is trade deficit. People speak of trade deficit as if it is a problem. It is not a problem. There is a great piece by Tim Harford written some 20 years ago called My Trade Deficit with My Babysitter, where the point he made was that we have a babysitter who comes home and I pay her money, she gives me services, but she never pays me anything. So technically, I have a trade deficit with her. Is it a bad thing? It isn't a bad thing because both people are benefiting. If you think about it, Newslaundry has employees. You pay all your employees. I would hope you pay all your employees. So you have a trade deficit with all of your employees because you are paying them and they are not paying you. Nevertheless, you are all happy because every mutually beneficial trade leaves both parties better off. That's the definition. But so instead of thinking about it as a positive sum game between individuals where it doesn't matter what a trade deficit is, if you think about it in a very simplistic way that two nations are trading and it is a zero sum game the way Trump seems to think, it's just very fallacious, it's very flawed. And finally coming to the India question, tariffs are never good. Like for the reasons I outlined, the term reciprocal tariffs firstly doesn't make sense to me. Friedman once made a point about the US, which is absolutely true, is that regardless of what other countries do, all US tariffs should be zero because your own people are benefiting. Reciprocal tariffs are akin to, in the words of the economist Joan Robinson, akin to throwing rocks on your own shore because some other country has a rocky coastline. It just doesn't make sense. It is suicidal. So that's sort of the key point to note. As far as how India will do, when Trump did his last round of tariffs in 2018, India came off pretty badly because first of all there were 25% tariffs on steel. What happened there was, now our steel exports weren't too much, about some 700 million or something, but they went down by 46 million. And then Europe, because of what America did, had to impose further restrictions on Indian steel because they feared a glut of steel coming from everywhere in the world because of what the US had done.
And at a
So
smaller
typically-
level, that's already kicked off with Europe kind of imposing
Correct.
copycat tariffs.
It's already kicked off. The one way in which tariffs could actually, the one way in which Trump's actions could be awesome for India, which is an unintended consequence, is that Trump is basically now taking the macho move that if you have tariffs on me, I will have tariffs on you. Now, Modi ji is not going to fight with Trump on this, so he might well find a face-saving way to give in and say we won't have tariffs either. If that happens, that is awesome for all us people. It is awesome for the poor of India. It is awesome for everybody because tariffs hurt us. And therefore, if our tariffs go down because of pressure from there, that is great, but it is an unintended consequence of what is otherwise a completely disastrous policy. It makes absolutely no sense. And I am completely baffled by it because we may disagree with a lot of things Trump does and we may agree with some of it, but all of it has reasonable arguments on all sides and there are debates and all that. This has nothing reasonable on the side of tariffs. It's completely harebrained. Every economist agrees with this. This is not one of those consensus things that changes every 20 years. For 250 years from Adam Smith onwards, everyone's agreed. Karl Marx agreed. Keynes agreed. So there's just no debate of it. And it's just baffling to me. But we can make the most of it, hopefully, if we get rid of our tariffs, because, our government job is to do what's best for our people. Our governments have never done that when it comes to tariffs. Like our history with tariffs is, we started off really bad. Because of Nehru going for import substitution, the whole infant industry argument, tariffs used to be in the hundreds of percents, as high as 300% at one time in the 1970s, when essentially we were a closed economy. 95% of the economy was catered to by local producers only. Now, after 1991, that really changed. Things got far, far better and so on and so forth. But our tariffs in many areas are still higher than they should be. Like, in my opinion, anything more than zero is higher than it should be. But they are higher, they're way, way higher than world
You're a
standards.
complete free marketeer. But, I'd like to go around the panel to know their views because I have a few observations which I will just make once I've been around. Jayashree, you have a view on this?
I think fundamentally, so see, the thing is over here that Trump sees himself as a victim, right? Whereas the rest of the world see themselves as victims of the US, whether it's the weaponization of the dollar, whether it's their control over global banking and financial systems, or if it's like military interventions and so on. And the most important thing is that American and Indian economies are not equal. America's per capita income is what, like $85,000 or whatever, and India's is like $2,500. So these are not two equal things. For me, the most important thing though is that Trump says he's doing this because he wants to encourage American manufacturing, right? Like that is the entire thing, that we will make America great again by manufacturing at home. The thing is, the capital has full freedom, but labor does not. Capital goes anywhere it wants, seeking cheap labor. Labor has no option to go anywhere because labor is pretty much geographically isolated, which is a terrible system. And it is why where capital goes in search for those lowest, most exploitative wages. So the US, which is a very rich country, cannot afford to pay Indian wages or Chinese wages at home. So even with new tariffs, I don't see this flipping that equation. Might be in like a marginal category, but it's like playing whack-a-mole, right? Like, so global supply chains, I feel, have become very nimble. People move from country to country looking for the most optimal costing solution. So if you have a tariff on goods from China or Canada, it doesn't change that equation, right? It doesn't mean the best alternative is that you produce in America, then you might go to Vietnam, you produce in Vietnam. You can't go to Vietnam and you impose a tariff, you then go to Bangladesh, you produce in Bangladesh. It's American consumers at the end of the day are still sort of battling higher prices in the short term. Manufacturing, I feel, is unlikely to fundamentally change or scale up. And those jobs are not coming back either. So I don't know, it just seems profoundly stupid. So I feel like both Amit and I agree that it's stupid, but coming at it from very different directions.
Anand, you have a take on this?
No, I have a very cliche take on it that time will tell. So, no, it's. I think the Republican Party is one of the ways of seeing it as conservatives was that it's market conservatism. That has been upended now. Means
all the classical conservative points of view, fiscal responsibility, all
So-
that shit is all out of the window.
So-
Now Trump's party is not a classic
And
conservative party.
I think the reasoning behind it is not very difficult. That in Trump's worldview, market is domestic market, not international market. So he's still say a market fundamentalist, but what is
Only American market fundament.
American market fundament. So the post Second World War, and of course before that also, as Amit pointed out, that this means world trade consensus that has been I think radicalized in his worldview in a way where one way would be that I think I'm foreseeing it because that he would say that the job is done. Now we are for a course correction, and now we are restoring something.
Which
So
already he's
yeah,
going down that route.
So that is one of the way in which you backtrack on certain policies where you are not seen as eating the humble pie. So that is one of
He changes that all the time. In fact, he uses that all the time. Manisha, you have any take on the tariff wars?
Same as Anand, want to wait and watch. But if they go, I guess they will benefit consumers like us. Like you said, this lady came up with a placard saying that these are the countries that charge on whiskeys or bourbon or whatever. And yeah, consumers like me will be able to get it cheaper, Apple products and stuff like that. But I get Amit's point that you have to be able to compete with the world. And in some sense, Indian market is flooded by Chinese goods. So we have kind of, no matter how protectionist we've been or whatever, we have lost the game to a lot of Chinese goods that have come in. But I also feel that there's a reason why you would have had that attitude, right? You can't have an MSME somewhere in Ludhiana competing with a company in America. We are not equal. We didn't start equal. So there is some sense to protecting your own industry. But yeah, it can't be ad hoc and it can't be forever, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, one is negotiating part, and we'll go back to
But where
Amit.
does this end also? Won't it? Will we really be in a world with no tariffs? I think it'll end up with bilateral negotiations. We'll go back to the same
No,
thing.
of course, I think it will finally end up where it was before Trump
Yeah,
came.
so
But
we'll have a period of uncertainty to only go back to what existed before.
One additional point, responding to what Manisha said about you can't expect an MSME in Ludhiana to compete with the best American firms. But the point is, one sector in which we didn't have tariffs, in which we didn't have protectionism, was IT services. And in IT, we've done perfectly well. We've built world-class companies. Some could argue that there isn't enough first-order innovation happening here, etc., which is legit and which will change and which is changing gradually. But the point is, in the one industry we didn't try to protect simply because we were blindsided by it and we didn't know that it was actually coming. We've done extremely well. So I wouldn't underestimate, Indian ingenuity and Indian entrepreneurship. We have a lot of natural advantages here, like cheap labor, for example, which is one of the things that to work for IT services, which we could use to compete with anywhere in the world. And again, if you look at some of our steel companies or some of what is happening, the best domestic businesses can compete, but it's just a question of what are the incentives. If your incentives are that you form a local interest group and you go to your local politician and then you protect your marketplace because you don't want to compete, then obviously you're going to have to try less and you're not going to reach those standards. But if you're competing with the globe, you are going to lift the game. So, that's a limited response I'd sort of have to that point.
So there are 3 or 4 things that I've pointed out. One is, Amit, you said, I guess everybody's happy since Newslaundry pays them and it's a deficit. I'm not sure everybody's happy. I could happily do with free labor. But a couple of things I think are, to me, they're not as obvious. One is, if like you gave the example of tech, although, the call center bit that after the initial boom in the late 2000s, it completely stopped because there was a pushback from America or the Western countries because they felt that they were being misled, etc., etc. So there are other things other than just the pure balance sheet cost benefit analysis. Secondly, something like Parle. Had Coke and Pepsi existed in India, Parle would, in my view, never have happened. I'm not saying I'm a pro-tariff guy, but to me, it's not that black and white. The auto industry, I think one of the reasons, and correct me if I'm wrong, you probably may have read a little more about Pakistan's economic history. The reason Pakistan does not have an auto industry at all is because they allowed Western cars to come in and Nehru said, no, we will only manufacture here. So these are 2 examples. And I remember when Coke and Pepsi came here and, Mr. Chauhan, I think at that time sold Parle for 40 crore to Pepsi. That was a huge princely sum at that time. Or when McDonald's came here and Lalit Narula and Deepak Narula sold Narulas because they could not compete with McDonald's. Is that, that is what I remember. I think I was in Newstrack back then. Pepsi came before Coke. Pepsi was allowed entry before Coke was when the liberalization happened.
Coke re-entered later, but
the first one to come was Pepsi.
Pepsi in 90.
And I remember we were told, and we tried to get to the bottom of it. They had the kind of money to buy out all the thumbs ups from the metros, pour them down the drain, so that if you went to get a thumbs up, you didn't have a choice. There was only Pepsi. Now, no Indian company could afford to do that. That's a part of marketing and sales cost. And the second thing which makes it unequal is, and this I've experienced personally when we used to go shoot ad films and marketing films for infrastructure companies like NACAP and Bechtel. They said there's certain countries where you cannot compete with the Chinese infrastructure company because they don't have anything called human rights. The guys working on their sites are prisoners. If they complete the job, they will get free. If they don't, they will be buried there. The former Soviet Republic had a lot of pipelines that were laid after it scattered. Many of those projects came to Indian companies, which also have pretty low labor rights. And a lot of them went to China because they too have none. So, there are many things that don't show up on balance sheets that do show up in the final sum. And lastly, just want to give the example, and I recommend this podcast, which I think I've recommended to Hafta listeners ages ago. The Luddites of UK. It was a fictitious person, this Ludd, after whom this anti-machine mechanization movement was. But in retrospect, the Luddites were right. It took 3 generations to recover the jobs that they lost. Eventually, it was a win-win, no doubt. But that was in the long run. And as a very famous economist said, in the long run, we're all dead. But 3 generations did suffer. So the Luddites' opposition to that mechanization was correct from their context. Because they suffered, their children suffered. And then, of course, later on, jobs were created at an exponential pace which London had never seen. but that generation was right. So how do you resolve these, future gains to present losses, to past productivity? I mean, is it a little more difficult than we might think?
Great questions. I'll tackle them one by one. But first, I'll start with this great quip by Salil Tripathi when he was on my podcast recently. And I quoted Keynes to him and said, Keynes said, in the long run, we are all dead. And Salil replied, we are in the long run and Keynes is dead, which is true. But just to go back to the Pakistan example, see, I have no idea what the auto industry in Pakistan is like. I haven't studied Pakistan. But an important factor to note is that until the point Nehru died, until the mid 60s, even the late 60s, Pakistan was actually doing far better than India economically. And part of that is because until that point, they embraced markets and they were proceeding apace. They were doing really well. And then with Zulfikar Ali Bhutto onwards, everything went terribly, terribly, tragically downwards. So that's another story. As far as Indian companies not doing well, I can think of CCD as an example, as a counter to Starbucks, for example, that our companies also benefit from markets opening up and expanding and all of the know-how and knowledge that comes in. Let me tackle the Chinese question, because that is something people will bring. People will say that, hey, China pe to lagana chahiye, because they have those unfair conditions where either they have what you call slave labor or the government subsidizes them heavily. So we can't possibly match their prices. So why should we not protect our guys? To which the simple answer is, that is awesome. It doesn't matter what they are doing. Markets exist for consumers. I have a need. Someone is fulfilling that need. I take it. Therefore, we take all the cheap Chinese goods we can take, and with the money that we save, with the value that we earn on that money, that value is going back out into the economy and creating jobs, which you can't account for directly because it is unseen, right? So you raise the point of the Luddites. I'll have to listen to this podcast, but the Luddites were completely wrong, and it did not take 3 generations. Throughout history, the arc of history is adjustments happen fast. Now, you will remember, Abhinandan, when we were growing up in the late 1980s, STD booths were the whole thing. There was such an awesome technology. There were 1 million STD booths in India. Now, in a matter of a few years, mobile telephony made them completely redundant, right? And what happened? Visibly, you will see that those 1 million STD booths vanished. You think of maybe the 2-3 million jobs. I don't know how many jobs each STD booth would have generated. They are all gone. But the economy booms, new value is created, they get, adjusted into all of that. So Luddites have always been wrong, all new technology. And even with AI, this will happen. Though with AI, the changes will happen so fast, it's kind of hard to say. So, but the point is, you can't quantify it. You can't say कि STD booth में जो काम करता था वो कहाँ गया. You can't quantify that. You can't track all of them. You can't really do that. But if you just look at the numbers of people in India lifted out of poverty since 1991, the hundreds of millions, you know that those jobs are there. You know that technology worked, that progress worked, that markets worked. So all of that. But, to just sort of go back to the China question, I would say that, yeah, if cheap goods are flooding in, it really doesn't matter. If the Chinese government is subsidizing our poor consumers, that's good for them. That's, they are doing that. It's okay. It's less of a burden on us. The point is that the economies and societies thrive on what Schumpeter called creative destruction. People have needs. People are trying to fulfill those needs. And in that fulfillment, there will be firms that will fail. There will be firms that will succeed. There will be firms that succeed today and fail tomorrow. And that is fine. The ultimate quest is satisfy the needs of society, to mutual benefit. And that is what really is the key here. So if you have a narrow key, like here is a domestic industry, we must support it. These particular jobs must survive. This particular person must be a lathe operator, even though, automation is here and is inevitable. I think that is really short-sighted thinking. It's not even in the long run or the medium term. In the short term, everyone is better off if you allow technology to come in, because otherwise you go back in the past and, where do you stop? We live in a world that is powered by technology. You think of how we grew up in the 80s, man. Most of this would not have happened if you took the Luddite approach and said, STD booth wale job jayenge, mobile phone mat aane do, etc., etc.
But yeah, I mean, there's one example of, I mean, I agree with you on the STD booth. There was, the cellular industry has created
more than yesterday, the cyber cafes, where you'd have a cyber cafe in every neighborhood. It's completely vanished.
So, I mean, of course, there are, but capacity building for a country, a society, for a labor, the assumption is there will be something that will be made within that country, because that money that is saved, because like Jayashree pointed out, capital is extremely fluid in the sense of how it can travel across borders, while labor can't. And there are unintended consequences. And I can tell you, when I went to Amsterdam last, they're actually mulling a law that we do not want unoccupied homes by these billionaires in China and Russia and these oligarchs. And this happened in Connaught Place. I don't know if you remember, when Pizza Hut and all had come, the average shop, the standard shops in Connaught Place, the rent used to be about between 1.5 and 3.5 lakhs. Pizza Hut was willing to pay 6 lakhs because they don't give a they could absorb losses for 6 years before they start making profits. It disrupted the entire property market. No one could afford shit. That's happening in many cities in Europe because residential places are being taken over by the ill-gotten wealth by Chinese and Russian billionaires. So they're saying the property market, we locals cannot afford a home here because, and this is a huge problem in the US, that our parents could afford 2 homes, you can't even afford one. That's becoming a problem in India. All these are consequences not directly of, foreign companies coming in, but in some way, all these things impact the other. And of course, there is no perfect formula in economics like there may be in physics or chemistry. But this entire narrative of globalization as being a good thing for everybody, the fact that it's been turned on its head in various countries, most of all in America, is that data backed? Is that backed because people suddenly feel poorer in America? Why has it become such a useful political tool? If there is, I'm not saying there is, but if there isn't even a limited economic reality, like for example, this entire communal thing in India, I think it is despicable, but it does come from a limited reality of the Shah Bano case. It comes from a limited reality in Bombay, back when Bal Thackeray decided to clean up the tracks in Mahim Junction because one train got blocked because people were reading namaz. Now, I'm not saying it was happening all over the country and the entire Indian railway system was fucked because of that. But yes, there was a limited reality that a train was stopped because X, Y, Z. And Bal Thackeray said, I'll clean up this railway track if the cops can't. Shah Bano case. So, is there some limited economic reality that globalization is not as much of a everybody's happy at the end of the day formula as was imagined, which is why this whole political movement has gained traction everywhere, including America?
So I'll come at it in 2 ways. Way number one is that let us, for example, look at India. Now you can come up with all kinds of anecdotes कि अरे इस बंदे के पास STD booth था अभी कुछ नहीं है and what did he do and etc etc. But I'd say ignore the anecdotes. Look at the data. What does the data tell you? The data tells you that in 1991 we opened up the economy, we embraced globalization to a limited extent. We should have done more of it, and we lowered tariffs to a limited extent. We should have done more of it, but even the limited reforms that we carried out in opening up and letting the world in and in embracing the world lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. It was overall just a massive good for humanity, and it was overall massively good for India. Now, that data doesn't lie, and that data is clear. As far as what is happening in America is concerned, I would say that what is happening in America is really a question of narrative battles in which the wrong narratives have won out because they are simpler. Now, let me explain. When I think of Trump coming to power in 2016, that was driven largely by what was happening in Middle America, where jobs had stagnated, where people realized that they don't necessarily have a better future than their parents did, etc., right? And the two simple narratives that Trump came up with, which were both simplistic and false, were narrative number one is that jobs are going because they are being shipped overseas, therefore globalization bad. And narrative 2, immigrants are coming and taking your jobs, therefore immigration
and eating
bad.
your pets.
Now, correct. Now, eating your pets. So your pets are also vanishing. So now both these narratives are false, but they are simple. And therefore, they are easy to sell and they are convenient because each of them has an enemy, the foreigner and the immigrant. And, as Carl Schmitt famously said decades ago, that in politics, you need an other. Right. So Trump builds these two others. He builds these bogeymen. The simple narrative sell, and it sparks on. Now, just because this narrative sold doesn't mean that globalization is bad. I would, in fact, say that globalization is great. I don't see how it cannot be great. It is great for everyone. It reduces poverty in poor countries. right? So I would strongly argue with saying that there are negative effects to it. I think the negative effects that you are referring to is the rise of populism across the world, and in Hungary, and what Putin is doing, and Trump, and closer home. But why attribute that to globalization? It's a separate phenomenon that has kind of happened at the same time, and it has its own causes and is deeply multifactorial. And I think looking for a simple explanation, one magic bullet explanation, would be making the same kind of mistake that Trump's voters made in 2016 when they said, "Ha, globalization bad, immigrants bad."
Right. Good point. So, Anand, you have anything to add to this?
After this Stiglitz and Friedman debate, Friedman, not
Well,
Friedman.
poor Stiglitz now, is he still alive? He used to be very vocal till a few years ago. I don't hear much from him anymore.
No, I would like to say that what role this, of course, 2008, the
Financial crisis.
financial crisis, and what role this 2 years of pandemic has, what it has contributed. Means the 2008 was not a black swan event, but we can say that pandemic was in a limited way. And in India, the Make in India, and then in those 2 years, you see more emphasis on self-dependence, Atmanirbhar, this. So it was more a response to this pandemic phase then, and that was the global consensus then, that you have to be inward looking because of the physical barriers that it was placing. And as a famous historian said that there are turning points in history when history refuses to turn. So when you see the editorials written during pandemic time, they seem foolish now. Because
No, even 2008, I've saved many of them where they said this is the end of capitalism. It will never be the same. The financial markets are going to be regulated unlike we've ever seen. I've saved all those because me and a friend of mine had a bet that, dude, this is to stay. I was like, boss, after in a short while, we'll be back to square one. But before we say bye to Amit, one last thought, Amit, there was, what you're saying, a simple narrative. I just heard the most devastatingly simple counter to Trump's rhetoric. And I was wondering why no other politician is using it. They said, Trump says, okay, Jayashree warning, another Trump impersonation coming up.
Oh gosh.
All these countries are taking advantage of us. We're just subsidizing their lives, or whatever the fuck he says. He says, see, post Second World War, see where Japan was, see where Germany was on per capita, on how much of the world trade they dominated, on how much of world capital they dominated, where most patents are issued. On every parameter, USA outperformed all these countries who were supposedly taking advantage of America. So if this was their plan to take advantage, it was such a shit plan that it fucking failed because only America grew at a pace way faster than all these other economies that are taking advantage. It's such a simple data set that they can show. Second World War, started taking advantage, see how America grew, see how they grew. They did well as well. But dude, America outperformed everybody. How does this not sell? It's such a devastatingly simple, graph to show everybody.
I think when Trump says it, he's not expecting anyone to believe him, and nobody does on this particular matter. So you don't even need the rebuttal because it is obvious nonsense. But one angle that we missed while talking about tariffs is that some people will say that he doesn't really mean the tariffs, that he's using it as a negotiating tool, and he's going to strong arm Canada into lowering their tariffs, and Mexico into lowering their tariffs, and India into lowering their tariffs. And I hope all of that happens. And so they put a spin on it and say that everything that Trump does is a negotiating tool because he's doing a game theory game. Like even that Middle East, that nonsense about we'll take Gaza and all that. Do you think he meant it? Nobody thinks he meant it. He's playing some other game in his head. Now that is a very dangerous game because you might be playing a game in your head where you expect outcomes to go along certain paths and they don't go along those paths. But the point is, if you know the game theory of that particular game of chicken, the game of chicken is, in the film Rebel Without a Cause, there's a scene like that two people, the deal is you're driving two cars towards a cliff and whoever stops last wins. Right? And the key to winning is you have to make the other person believe that you're mad enough to actually go off the cliff, so he will stop before you. Right? And in geopolitical terms, when chicken is played, like when two nuclear nations play it, like for example, if Kim Jong-un plays the game of chicken with anyone, knowing Kim Jong-un, they'll believe that, hey, North Korea is mad. The guy might actually do anything. So they'll take him seriously, and the deterrence becomes real. Right? Now, Trump is that kind of guy that if he plays a game of chicken, if he's smart enough to know what that is, but if he plays a game of chicken, people will actually think that this guy is crazy enough. He's crazy enough to put 30% tariffs. He's crazy enough to do this, and therefore it might work. So this is a slightly convoluted argument that some people make. I am extremely skeptical of it because I think that this is too sophisticated a trick for someone like him to try, and B, it requires a perfect storm to actually work out, and I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm skeptical of it, but it's worth putting out that this is an argument some people have made. But as Anand and Manisha said, perhaps the best thing to do is to just wait and watch. And I mean, like there's that old Chinese curse: we live in interesting times.
Yes, we
May
do.
you live in interesting times.
But thanks so much, Amit, for sparing so much of time for us. And you can find the links to Amit's show and the tutorials. What do you call them? Classes, tutorials, course?
My courses, art,
Courses.
playwriting, and life lessons. I'll send them to you.
The
shortly,
link
but
in the
yeah.
show notes. You can even register for those. And before we let you go, Amit, some recommendation that you think would enrich the lives of our viewers and listeners.
Oh my God, I was warned about this. The best film I watched in the last year is Perfect Days by Wim Wenders. I'm sure everyone's seen it by now,
No,
but
dude, I
it's
haven't.
a
No.
lovely film and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Among books, one book I keep recommending to everyone to understand both cities and economics is Order Without Design by Alain Bertrand, which is just a masterpiece in understanding what a city is and how it works. And an earlier classic on that, if you haven't read it, is by one of my great heroes, Jane Jacobs. It's called The Death and Life of Great American Cities. As most of us live in cities, these are like wonderful books to read. And Seeing Like a State by James C. Scott is another masterpiece which helps demystify the workings of the state, and it's an eye-opening book for anyone who's read it. So it's just a great book.
Thanks, Amit. And we look forward to listening to many more episodes of your podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yes, and happy
Thank
Holi.
you.
Thank you. Happy Holi.
Anyone else, before we go to the recommendations, want to chip in on any of the issues we've discussed or some that we've missed out? Because we will not be reading any emails this week. We have 33 emails. Many have surpassed the word limit. So I think we will have to figure out a system where we read some emails every hafta and then we have maybe every fourth hafta separate email edition, because we love to hear from you. But from, an average of 10, 12, it's become an average of 25, 30, which can take an hour itself to deal with each. But we'd
But
like
you guys
to.
did letters last week, no?
Yeah,
you
but
guys-
there now 30 more have come already, 33.
So we do
But that's
one.
good. I mean, that's a great.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
testament.
But it's just that we need to figure out another system that we can, deal with these, or we run them through AI and say, make each of these letters into,
No, we're not going to feed AI, please.
Okay.
We
So,
must resist.
but we'll figure
Manisha
that out.
anyway feeds it enough for like all of us, so don't encourage her.
But we will deal with all these emails. Just don't mail us this week, please, because it's Holi. Everyone is in any case, and we have to deal with so many. So yeah. But before we wind up, anything else that we missed out on, either cricket or Holi or tariffs?
No, I think we had
No, we covered it all.
very detailed conversations.
All right. So let's get the recommendations and let's start with Jayashree.
Both my recommendations are like for if you have many hours to spend reading, you can click on these links. So the first is a very old. I think it's quite a renowned piece of long form journalism. In 1989 in Florida, the bodies of 3 women were found floating in Tampa Bay. It was a woman and 2 daughters. So the story is that they were killed by a man whom they trusted to show them a good time in their first ever visit to Florida. And the thing is, it's 50,000 words long. Please don't judge me. But it's also like a really meticulous piece of reportage and storytelling. So I think it's worth making your way through. So you
Where
can
is
read
it?
like half an hour a day, and then I think you'll finish it in a few months.
Where is this?
It's called Angels and Demons. It was published in Tampa Bay Times. I think it won a Pulitzer. It was published in like 97. So that's how old it is.
Okay.
My second is a novel. It's called The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton. So at its heart, it's a story about climate change. How it's again about Florida, actually. Hurricanes have claimed Florida. The government has officially declared that Florida is dead. It does not exist. Water has taken over the coastlines, flooding the entire state. It has been shut down. But it's also a very it's a very moving, interesting book about like hope and resistance, and also like a little bit of magical realism. So yeah, The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton.
All right, Manisha.
There was a really disturbing case of rape that was reported from Hampi in Karnataka, where two women with 3 of their male companions went out
And that
stargazing.
one
The
boy
men were
died.
pushed into. So my recommendation is a profile of the boy who died, Bibas Nayak, in the Indian Express. I just think he shouldn't die without people acknowledging that something so simple as just going out stargazing led to
Yeah.
something so gruesome. And the women were with 3 male companions. It was not that late, and yet it is a very disturbing case.
One was Israeli.
One
Yeah,
was
the one is
Israeli,
and
one
was
was
the owner of a
American.
homestay.
And that stupid Karnataka minister named them, no, to the media, and then the media published their names, even though they're not allowed to, because
India is among some of the dangerous countries for solo women travelers, and I think we should really think about this. Another podcast I've just started listening is Can Kara Save the Washington Post from Jeff Bezos? Just started listening to this. Seems interesting and promising.
that's
Right.
a fun name, though.
Yeah.
Anand.
No, I am recommending 3 pieces by Manu Joseph. I think he is doing brilliant writing lately. Okay, of late he has written 3 very good pieces. Also, I think I have been reevaluating his work, and I think that a lot of writing that is being done today, none of it will survive because it has politics or reaction to something. He is the only one and there are some in regional media, I know, but in English media, who is looking at ideas, who is looking at the larger picture, the ideas shaping human behavior, the things, and after the current affairs have settled themselves. So he's not reacting to news, he's not reacting to this person or that person, and seriously looking at ideas, interplay of ideas, forces of history. And in that sense, he's a unique Indian journalist and novelist. And his last 3 pieces. One is why entertainment has become boring. All sorts of entertainment has become boring. He has just gone, and only in 1,000 words. Also, why West has lost appeal. Why we are not emulating West as a set of ideas or values. Why it has lost its appeal, attraction. And third is that why our views are not actually our views, but it's actually a kind of reaction or something that is counter to the people we oppose, people we hate. So we are actually not having our views. We
Are just reacting to people we don't
no,
like.
like if he is believing in this thing, and
Then I have to see the
I have
opposite.
to say the opposite, and I have
Right.
to somehow.
Cue to get Manu on Hafta next
No,
week.
I think as a body of work, his writings will survive all Indian journalists writing in English. I only wished he had exposure to rural India. He's a city guy, so that is what limits him in reading the psyche of more and more Indians. If he was exposed to, he has lived in Chennai, Mumbai, and Gurgaon. So, but if he was a bit. And second recommendation is it's a unique kind of column that I came across by Ian Chappell, the former Australian cricketer. So his broadcasting and column writing career outlived his playing days. So he has written a column hanging his boots as a columnist. So that this is my last column, and he has written, and it's a syndicated column in Australia, UK, and in India. So this is my last column. Also, these ghost writers, the cricketers employ for writing stuff. So Jonathan Selvaraj, who is a sports journalist earlier,
Very good one.
so
For the Hindu.
once I talked to him, he said that there are few cricketers who actually write. So he said that I saw that an English cricketer. He was actually structuring sentences and this that. So and all those in the Times of India ST and these columns appear on the same match day of cricketer who is actually playing in that game. So
Yeah, man, wow.
so,
Yeah, that
so-
must be hard, no?
So no, there's a,
I know it's ghostwriting, sure,
So
but yeah.
ghostwriting. So there are few who actually write, and he has written for almost 40 years. So he mentions that I went to the Australian, which is an Australian newspaper, and Sydney Morning Herald, and the editor said that do you want someone from our staff to write for you? Just dictate. So he said that I will send you 2 pieces. If you approve, I will write myself. So he approved. So he said I wrote myself.
Wow.
Actually,
So-
ghostwriting reminds me, there's a good piece in Al Jazeera also on this paid review
Yeah,
menace
I
in
saw
the
that.
Indian film industry. Very good one.
Mm.
I saw some of the Oscar movies. Last
You've
week.
seen all of them now.
No, not all of them.
Just
the
a complete
Brutalist,
unknown.
The
Hmm.
Brutalist, Conclave, Wicket, and the fourth is Emilia Perez.
Hmm.
So Emilia Perez.
Anora also you saw.
Anora, yes, but that was last time
Wow, sir.
so Emilia Perez on movie, and this Wicked is also available on Google TV. You need to, of course, rent it. And the other two I saw in the cinema, and real good movies. All 4 of them, one must watch.
Right. I have 2 recommendations. One is the 12th March episode of the Ezra Klein show, Why Trump's Tariffs Won't Work. Since we spoke about tariffs, I think he and his guest have very simply kind of explained the impacts of the tariffs and how they will most likely play out.
I'll watch that.
So it's a very comfortable, easy listen. And the second is this series that I've started listening to. I've actually finished listening to this. Now I'm going to go to the next. It is a podcast series called Business Wars by Wondery. And the season I heard was season 98, Fox News versus CNN. And it's fascinating, man. It is just so fascinating. We should do a podcast like this sometime, Jayashree. Because we have access, we know the real story, what happened. We have lived through this historical time in India.
Just need to document.
Yeah, we just need to document it. And we
Yeah.
have access to the main players. And yeah, it's a fascinating listen.
Do you have any parallels in India
Oh, of course, sir.
in this? No,
Well, not
Fox-
exactly. It didn't play out exactly like this because the numbers involved are not as high, but the stories are no less dramatic.
No, no.
Hmm.
In fact, they are more dramatic because here though you had completely different pools to dip into. Everybody was dipping into the same pool.
Right.
So on that note, wish you happy Holi again. Remind you, pay to keep news free when the public pays. The public is served. We take no advertising. So please support journalism so we can do more and more of it. I'd like to thank our producer Priyali, and Hassan is here as well. And thank you, Jayashree. Thank you, Manisha. Thank you, Anand. Thank you, Raman sir.
Thank you.
We can
Thank
end with
you.
a song recommendation from Anand this time, since he said so many things about holy songs.
A holy bhoji song recommendation.
From you. It can be non-bhoji or anything. एक भौजी होता है, by the way, भौजी नहीं होता.
Bhauji.
It's like bhau.
Okay, so I'm just warning everyone, this song recommendation from Anand. Now let's see what he comes up with.
I will recommend an obscene song which gets you to the court.